Welcome to Pods and Ears, the podcast for grain elevators, processors, and feed mills who are ready to turn their scattered data into a strategic advantage. I'm Rob Houston, co-founder of Innovative Grain, and over my 30 years in the commodities business, I've seen what helps grain operations thrive, and my goal is to help you do the same. In each episode, we're going to challenge the conventional thinking about how you view your data and your ROI. Whether it's unified data systems, business intelligence, or just making smarter decisions with what you already have, we're here to give you practical insights you can actually use. Let's get started. Today, we're talking about leadership with data. Not the IT department's data, not the analyst's data off in a corner, but yours. The kind a leader puts on the table to promote a strategy, defend a tough call, back a budget, or wake people up to a problem that nobody spotted yet. And here's why it matters right now. In today's environment, margins are thin. Producers shop bids harder than they used to, and you're fighting for share of production one account at a time. Meanwhile, we are sitting on mountains of good information that could help us win those fights, and we throw most of it away. Picture a grain elevator during harvest. Somebody standing at the dryer, or in the dryer shack, as I called it back in the day, with a clipboard. Every 15 minutes, they're recording the moisture in, the moisture out, the temperature, the bin they're pulling from, the bin they're drying to, the lot number, the variety, the runtime, and maybe they may be recording the outside temperature and humidity. Maybe the manager looks over it the next morning to make sure nothing went wrong overnight. And then that sheet goes in a drawer, or worse yet, in the trash. The problem with that data is that it's just one day or one shift of record keeping. Essentially, it's just a single snapshot in time. It tells the manager that last night everything went okay, or at least that's what the operator wrote down. But what if you had 3 consecutive years of those readings? Now that's a picture. That tells you which settings actually moved moisture the most efficiently and the effects the drying process had on quality. You could also analyze your fuel usage in certain conditions, or even which dryer performed the best if one particular dryer is quietly losing the performance it had 2 years ago. A single snapshot in time can't show you that. Only the picture can. And now, imagine taking that picture to your board. You're not asking for a new dryer because the old one feels tired. You're showing them what it's costing you every single season in fuel and in throughput, and the numbers to prove it. That is a proposal that has a better chance of getting approved. Now, everything I just said was about numbers, stuff that fits in a column. But some of the most valuable information in our businesses never fits in a column at all. And that's exactly why some companies ignore it. Think about what happens every time an originator hangs up the phone with a producer. Buried in that call is a gold mine. How that farmer feels about the market, whether he's holding or getting ready to move bushels, or maybe that his son is stepping into the operation and the relationship's about to change hands. Maybe it's what the co-op down the road quoted him last week. Some of that gets jotted into a note in a notebook, but most of it lives in the originator's head and nowhere else. Now, multiply that by hundreds of producers and thousands of conversations a year. No human being can hold all of that information in their head. And worse yet, nobody can see the patterns running through it. Now, that's a good use case for AI. AI platforms will use machine learning to read every one of those conversations and finds what one person never could. Which producers are showing signs they're about to sell somewhere else. Maybe it's which ones are warming back up to a contract they passed on before. Or what concern keeps coming up across your whole territory, the one your originators are each hearing alone and each maybe writing off as a one-off. One person's memory cannot see that. The full body of conversations can. It's a snapshot versus a picture all over again. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking because I've heard it plenty of times. The second I bring up capturing phone calls, 2 objections come up really fast. The first one is from employees. They hear recording and they think Big Brother is listening to every single word they say. I've had employees ask me, will I get fired if I accidentally drop an F-bomb with a customer that I've known for years as we're talking about the football game last night? And of course, the answer is no, that's not what we're looking for. The second one's about the customer, the worry that a producer won't talk as freely if he knows he's being recorded, and the relationship takes a hit. I've also had employees ask, does the customer really want this? Are their customers asking us to record their calls? Both of those are fair, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that they're not. But the technology has come a long way in a short period of time, and it's moved in a direction that answers a lot of this. You don't have to record the whole conversation anymore to get value out of it. You can just record just your side, the merchandiser's voice, not the customer's. Is that as complete as having both sides of the conversation? No, but it's a whole lot better than capturing nothing at all, and it changes the math on both objections. When you're not recording the customer, there's no need for that pre-recorded, this call may be recorded for quality and training purposes. That line that makes everybody clam up the second they hear it. Your originator just talks the way she always has. Her side gets captured along with the other conversations with bookkeepers, for example, and that's useful data you can actually put to work. I'd add one thing. Check what applies where you operate because the rules on this vary from state to state. I'm not a lawyer, but the point holds. You've got options today that simply didn't exist a few years ago. And let me be real clear about something because it matters to me. The human touch is the heart of this business. It always will be. No model is going to build trust with a producer over a cup of coffee. It's not going to read the crowd at a field day and notice the young farmer that's concerned about credit or the higher costs of fertilizer. It's also not going to know when the right move is to just shut up and listen. That cannot be replaced, and honestly, I wouldn't want it to be. What the technology does is take the one part the human brain genuinely cannot do, which is holding thousands of conversations in your head and analyzing them at once and finding the threads that tie them together. And it hands that back to your people, so employees can do the human part even better. And that's exactly what makes this last piece so powerful. Ask any seasoned merchandiser which customers are about to walk, and he'll give you a name or two off the top of his head. But the early signs of a customer slipping away almost never show up in one obvious place. Maybe it's a little less volume this quarter versus the same quarter last year, or maybe their responses to your questions have gotten shorter over the last few calls. It's hard for a human to notice, but maybe there are fewer touch points this year than in previous years. It could be a complaint that never really got resolved. No single one of those issues tells you anything in particular, but put them all together across every account, and they tell you plenty. The technology weighs all of it at once and hands your salesperson a ranked list of who's actually at risk, so he can spend a phone call on that relationship before the business is gone instead of after. Because by the time a customer is slipping away is obvious to the human eye, you're already too late. Now, I can hear the question forming because I get it just about every time I talk about this. Okay, Rob, I'm sold. But how do I actually do any of this? I've got guys with clipboards at the dryer. I've got merchandisers with a stack of notebooks from previous years. And I've got several guys who keep more than half of this information in their heads. Where do I even start? That's a fair question, but let me walk through it the way I think about it, and I'll keep it plain. There are really 3 problems to solve, and they go in order: capture, store, and access. Capture is getting the information off of paper and out of people's heads in the first place. And this is the part folks overcomplicate. You don't have to rip the clipboard out of anybody's hands on day one. And you can implement a simple digital form on a tablet at the dryer instead of a paper sheet. And you can provide a place for originators to log call notes that isn't a personal notebook. If recording both parties on outbound and inbound calls are too much, you can also use single-sided recording and transcription on the calls like we just talked about. None of that is exotic. The tools to do it have been around for years, and they're not expensive. Storing it is where most operations get stuck. And it's the part that usually gets skipped because capturing your data in 10 different places isn't much better than not capturing it at all. Your dryer data gets captured in one system, your scale tickets are captured in another, and the merchandiser's call notes are in a third. Your accounting data sits somewhere else entirely. That's the scattered problem we've been talking about. It's just digital now instead of being on paper. The fix is being able to access it in one place where it can be visualized and, more importantly, analyzed to discover patterns and create efficiencies. For a lot of operations now, that place is Microsoft Fabric. I'm not going to turn this into a software pitch, but the idea is simple. You bring your separate sources into one environment, so your accounting data, your scale data, and maybe even your logged calls are finally sitting next to each other instead of stranded on a dozen islands. That's the moment scattered snapshots start turning into a real picture. And then finally, access. Once it's all in one place, your people have to be able to actually ask questions and get answers without needing a data scientist standing by every time. That's the dashboard on the merchandiser screen. That's where the machine learning can finally read across everything at once because everything is finally accessible in one place for it to read. The pattern that was invisible when the data was scattered becomes something you can actually see on a Monday morning. Here's the honest part. None of this happens overnight, and you don't do it all at once. You pick one of those scattered data sets, either the one that most view as the single source of truth, or maybe it's the one that's costing you the most, and you start there. For most grain elevators, the logical place to start is with their accounting data. That is what most people view as their single source of truth. You can capture it cleanly, give it a home, and make it something your team can actually visualize and look at. Then you move to the next one. Perhaps it's your CRM platform, if your team actually uses it. That's how this gets built. It's not in some big rip and replace project that scares everybody half to death, but one painful spot at a time. So notice what every one of these has in common. The data already exists. The dryer readings, the conversations, the buying history, it's all there. It's just hard to work with, so most grain elevators leave it alone. Typically, the patterns don't exist in a single data set. They show up when the platform has access to information that's far greater than any one person can carry in their head alone. And that's the whole difference between a snapshot and a real picture. Now, I'm not telling you to go buy software for the sake of it, and I'm not telling you to record every word anybody says. Remember, the clipboard isn't the enemy. The originator's memory isn't the enemy. The problem is letting the information stop there. Captured once, looked at once, and never given a chance to tell you anything bigger. So here's what I'd do this week. Pick one spot in your operation where information is getting written down, talked through, or carried around in somebody's head and then lost. And ask yourself one question. If I had 5 years of that data in front of me, organized and searchable, what would it tell me that I can't see today? If the answer is anything worth knowing, that information deserves a better home than a drawer or a fading memory. The leaders who win the budget fights and the strategy debates usually aren't the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones who understand and show up with the numbers. And the good news is that most of those numbers and most of those conversations are already happening. We just have to stop letting them disappear. Thanks for listening to Pods and Ears. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to like, download, and share it with others in the grain industry who might benefit. Your feedback matters to me, so let me know what topics you'd like to hear more about or what challenges you're facing with your data and operations. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and at www.innovativegrain.ai. Until next time, keep putting your data to work.